Hi, I'm Linda Nazareth, and I'm an economist and a keynote speaker. Now, I speak to audiences all the time about the economic outlook. It's always challenging, but this year, of course, particularly challenging. So let's talk about what's going on in your 5-minute economy. Well, we can start with the fact that we are in a race. We're in a race right now between vaccines getting rolled out in the US and Canada and different parts of the globe, and as well a race because we have this other force, which is we have new variants of COVID-19. They seem to be perhaps more dangerous. They're changing the game plan slightly, and I do see that they're impacting on business and consumer confidence. We've seen shutdowns, but we've also just seen a rollback of some plans that we had hoped to see happen later in the year, in the summer and the fall. Now companies are saying, well, maybe it'll take a little bit longer. So we're going to see, how this plays out. Hopefully the vaccines do get rolled out more quickly, but in the meantime, we're in a bit of a holding pattern. Now, here's the most recent projection from the International Monetary Fund. Put this out in January, and they expect to see global growth this year 5.5%. This follows growth of, well, not growth, a contraction of 3.5% last year. And if you look at the advanced economies, it's not quite as good. Now, this is the US, Canada, Europe, 4.3% growth following almost 5% of a contraction last year. Emerging economies growing more quickly. Now, this is not an exact science, particularly right now. If we do have a pullback in economic activity earlier in the year, then these numbers might look worse. I guess the important thing is what the big picture is. And the big picture is we are looking at an expansion. The question is, when does it start? Now, if we're going to see this not get derailed, we do need to see policy continue to support economies in the advanced and developing world, certainly in the US and Canada. We're going to need to see interest rates stay low, and they are very likely to stay low. We've heard this from the US Federal Reserve. We've heard this from the Bank of Canada. There is no plan to raise rates anytime soon. Here is US mortgage rates. I wanted to show you this one. This shows a 10-year look at mortgage rates, and you can see on the 30-year rate hasn't been any lower than this, which is why the housing market is doing as well as it's doing. There's other reasons, but this is one of them. And if we don't see higher rates, you're going to see activity continue. So you're going to see interest rate policy support the economy for a while, certainly. We're also going to see government policy supported. We know we're going to see direct aid to households in the US, or we presume we are. That will keep the consumer sector going. We may see tax cuts in different countries. We may see all kinds of aid to business. And we can't really pull back on that. At some point, we're going to talk about deficits, paying this money back, who's going to be taxed. But in the meantime, this year is going to be about spending. Because if you look at the economic signals, they're not as good as you want them to be. If you start with jobs, this is the US, non-farm payrolls are stalling. We saw this big drop in jobs early in 2020, came back to an extent, and now we're getting some disappointing numbers. Hopefully they'll pick up, but the last report was not what it could be. You see the same pattern in Canada, where you saw jobs recover. Now there's some new shutdowns, some lack of confidence, and we are seeing a bit of a pullback. So you need policy to support this. You need to have patience. You need to assume that we will get things put in order. For the meantime, we are going to have to watch all these variables closely and see how 2021 develops.